Okay, this is just silly. So, Nintendo is really into exclusivity. And I mean, don't get me wrong, it's not a Nintendo thing, right? Many companies are all about having their own brand and making people buy their stuff. That's the whole point of business. But sometimes I feel like Nintendo is playing the wrong game, or trying to make their own rules for a game that nobody really wants to play with them. And I'm calling it silly because it's actually kind of funny. I'm not bothered by this, but at the same time, it's one of those things where it's dumb enough where I think it's worth talking about, but not dumb enough to cause a huge amount of uproar or anything. You know, it's Memorial Day, we got a holiday, we got a day off, the sun's shining. I think it's worth talking about something that makes me chuckle. So, for those of you unaware, Nintendo released an app a few months ago called the Nintendo Today app, and that's kind of where they're giving all of their daily updates, I guess. It's a fun way for them to kind of connect with the community and just give them little bits and pieces of information, make some big announcements of upcoming directs, I guess. They also led off with a massive announcement of the Legend of Zelda movie being on there pretty quickly after downloading the app, so people knew that they were going to take the app seriously. The whole concept kind of reminded me of the Smash Dojo stuff back in the day, where they would release little bits of information and updates leading up to Super Smash Bros. Brawl. You know, because they don't really have much information to share, but they want to give the people something, and, you know, fans will eat that stuff right up. Now, at the time when they had announced this app, a lot of people were making jokes that Nintendo would eventually start putting their Nintendo Directs exclusively on this app, and they would lock it behind a Nintendo Switch Online membership too, which would effectively hide the Nintendo Directs behind a paywall. And you know, it might sound crazy, but I actually think that's where they're moving towards. It's just, they're only going to do that if they can pull it off, obviously, and realistically speaking, they won't be able to pull that off. But we'll get to that in a second. So basically, the app had a recent update. They quietly decided to add DRM, I guess, that prevents the capture or screen recording of the content on there, making it impossible to archive promotional material for the Nintendo Switch 2 in the future. Now, I say impossible, but it's not actually impossible. You just can't do it the simple way of screen recording, and you can't even screenshot. So when I heard about this, I remembered that I actually had the app downloaded. I think it got released right before the Switch 2 Direct. I can't remember why. Like, I don't even think I have the Nintendo Switch Online app even before all the Switch 2 stuff came out. I don't usually download excessive apps on my phone. But I remembered that this one was downloaded, so I figured I would take a look at it. So I opened it up and I started screen recording, and it worked. I took a screenshot and it worked. So then I was like, oh, maybe they only updated the iPhone or something because I'm using Android. But then sure enough, I checked if there was an update available for the app, and there was. So I downloaded that update, jumped back onto the app, and I could no longer screen record the Mario Kart World footage. As a matter of fact, I could not even screenshot it. And it just kind of made me chuckle, primarily because this doesn't make that much sense to me. So most companies, they want their information to spread. They want people to share their information and send it to this guy and have them send it to another person, and that guy sends it to his friend and she sends it to so-and-so. That's marketing, right? It's all about getting your information, your trailers, all the fun stuff out there for as many people in the world to see. But Nintendo has this obsession with getting people to buy in, both literally and figuratively, to their stuff so that they could control the media narrative. I don't know exactly what the deal is. I mean, I get it to an extent. They want people to download their app so that they can get all of the royalties that come out either from ad revenue or whatever it may be. I think in their minds, they want to cut out YouTube, or at least cut out YouTube to an extent. Basically, the big broad announcements will go out to the world to see on YouTube, and then like all of the more in-depth and detailed things will be on the app. And I don't know, maybe their long-term plan is if they can get away with it, they would charge people to be able to use the app, whether it's locked behind the online subscription or whatever it may be. They clearly think they're big enough to do this. Why would they allow YouTube to host their videos when they can host it themselves? Google shouldn't get the royalties, they should. Maybe they don't want to post things on X or on Blue Sky. They're clearly pushing it the best they can to make it so that if you want to know what's going on with Nintendo, you gotta have the Nintendo app. And it's pretty clear that they're not going to go fully into this. Like, they know that they can't completely pull away from all of the other outlets that exist out there, because that's realistically how you're going to get all of that reach. But they need that exclusivity. They want this app to be enticing so that if somebody wants to see the new Mario Kart footage, the new trailer for a game, or whatever the case may be. They're going to be intrigued to jump in onto the app and download it, because if you want to know what's going on with Nintendo, you need to have Nintendo's app. So while they're clearly not big enough to be like, hey, we're not going to put our Nintendo Directs on YouTube anymore, they're only going to be on our app, or at least for now, that's what I think. I'm pretty sure that if they knew they could get away with it, that's what they would do. There's clearly some thought in their mind where they feel that they are big enough to force fans of Nintendo to download this app and get the information and the trailers and whatever else may be from the app exclusively. And I don't know, it's just so dumb and funny, but at the same time, why? Like, imagine you're at the park and then somebody is just playing and then all of a sudden they get mad and they're like, hey, you know what? I'm mad. I'm gonna take my lawn chair home and leave. And you're looking at them like, why are you grabbing your lawn chair? Nobody was okay, whatever, just leave. That analogy makes no sense, right? Yeah, that's what Nintendo is doing. They're not making any sense. Like, they're like, if you want to see gameplay footage that we uploaded that was 15 seconds long, you gotta download our app to see it. And the reality is that most people that want to see that gameplay footage already have your app. Who are you hiding this from? This actually, funnily enough, reminded me of Smash Bros. Brawl. And this is where the whole exclusivity thing comes into play. So, seeing as how we're almost 20 years removed from Smash Bros. Brawl, this might actually be new information to some of my younger listeners. But basically, the Subspace Emissary in Super Smash Bros. Brawl was a single-player mode. Actually, I say single-player, but you could play it co-op. What was really cool about it was that there was an actual story and these amazing cutscenes between these characters that you had grown up with, and they were interacting and saving the world together. These were fairly early YouTube years. Naturally, people took all of the cutscenes, uploaded it online, and everybody loved them. Even if you had played the game, you would go on YouTube and you might watch them again. There was just nothing like it before, from a Smash Brothers perspective, from a Nintendo perspective, from any kind of crossover collaboration. It was very cool. After that, Nintendo had gotten very annoyed. Actually, I say Nintendo, it was Sakurai. He basically said he didn't want people putting the cutscenes on YouTube because they're meant to be a reward. Yeah, my dude thinks that cutscenes are a reward. So instead, he put the time and effort and the animations into the newcomer trailers so he could control the spread of them. Now, there were some cutscenes that would leak and they would end up online before the game actually came out. And also, Smash Bros. Is more a multiplayer game than anything else, so who cares what's being shared from the single-player angle? In my mind, back in the day, I thought to myself, you know, this is probably a cop-out. They don't want to make a intense single-player mode like they did with the Subspace Emissary. They don't need to. People are going to play Smash Bros. And they're going to do the online multiplayer or in-person multiplayer like Smash Bros. Was meant to be. Why waste so much time and resources on a single player mode that people are only going to play once for 5 or 6 hours and then spend the next 350 hours playing multiplayer? It's the same logic of why we never got a true single player mode in the Mario Kart series except for like that little mission mode in DS. But looking at it now, I think they were actually serious about the cutscenes being a reward. See, Nintendo has time and time again proved that this is the way that they think. In their minds, people that are watching these trailers on YouTube are not buying Brawl. So they don't want to reward people that don't buy the game, don't give them money. They think that Smash Bros. Is such a massive title, and it is, don't get me wrong, but they think that it's so massive that if you want to see the cutscenes in this game, you have to buy in. And that's the reward. You play the game, you get the cutscenes. If you don't buy the game, you don't deserve the cutscenes that were in the single-player mode of Super Smash Bros. Brawl. And this isn't without precedence. This is the way that Nintendo thinks. You guys know my channel always comes back to emulation. Why do you think they're getting rid of all of the ROMs? Why do you think they're cracking down on so many fan projects? Like, you could say it's to protect their IP, but what does protecting their IP actually mean? Nintendo thinks about this the same way all of these corporations think about this. They want you on their product for as long as possible. If you're playing anything else, including stuff that is not on their current generation console, that's a bad thing as far as they're concerned. So if you are emulating a game that they no longer sell from, 20 years ago, that's a loss for them because you're not playing the games that they have available on their Nintendo Switch Online or Classics line, whatever it's called now. If you're playing a fan-made project, you're not playing the games that they have on their console. They want you to buy in and play stuff on their Switch to the best of their ability. and they will frequently go out of their way to make sure that nobody is playing an alternative. That's why they attack Palworld, because they know that Pokemon fans might get their heads turned. That's why they went after the rental companies back in the day, because they want you to buy their games and put it on your console. That's why they want digital. They don't want people to buy new stuff. They want every time you enjoy a game, you got to give money to Nintendo. It's the same concept with YouTube. The YouTube algorithm wants to see if your video keeps people on YouTube longer. I've noticed this with a lot of my longer form videos when my channel was much smaller. I'd have a video that was over an hour and a half long. Now, realistically speaking, not many people would click on that because they would look, they'd see somebody with, I don't know, 1,000 or 2,000 subscribers for an hour and a half video, and they'd be like, this guy's on crack, I'm not gonna watch this. But then, let's say 3%, 2% of people that pass by that thumbnail decide to click it and they end up watching the entire video. All you need is those 2 or 3% of people to watch the video and watch it for an extended period of time, and then start binge watching all of the other videos that you've made because they clearly are interested in what you're saying. And as far as the algorithm is concerned, they're like, well, this guy's content is clearly forcing people to watch YouTube a lot longer. They're not watching Netflix, they're not scrolling Instagram. So they push that video out significantly more. But a short 15 to 20 minute video, if you don't captivate a much larger percentage of people and keep them on the app for a longer period of time, that video becomes a dud pretty quickly if you have a low click-through rate. It's the same reason why when my channel started to blow up last month, they kept pushing my videos a lot more in that first month, because after people found that they were interested in me, they started binge watching the old stuff. But when everybody is running out of old stuff to watch, it starts to slow down and it kind of just levels off. And this happens to all YouTubers. The goal of every one of these companies is to keep you in their ecosystem for as much as they possibly could, whether it's an app or a game console or just making announcements, whatever the case may be. They want it done in their own controlled environment because that's beneficial to them. And Nintendo is big enough to assume that they can do their own thing. They can get people to download their app to watch trailers and gameplay footage and get minor announcements. And legitimately, I do not think we are that far away from an exclusive Nintendo Direct that's only on the app. Actually, in saying that, potentially even after they launch the Switch 2, with the console's hype being at its highest point, they could very well be making this update in preparation for the launch of the Switch 2 when they make that Direct, forcing millions of people to download the Nintendo Today app to watch that Direct. That's probably why they have the update now, in preparation for this. And I don't know, if it's not this Direct, it might be one in the future. And once they make enough of a habit out of it, once they know that people understand that the way Nintendo works is if you want to get their news, you got to be on their app, that's probably when they'll put a paywall on the app. They'll do it if they can get away with it. That may sound crazy, but this is the same company that pulled out of the E3 Directs because they just were like, why are we doing this? People are going to watch our stuff. We don't need to do this fancy presentation and come to a press conference. We can control our own environment. We can make our own hands-on sessions around the country at our own Nintendo stores. We don't need to make crazy, powerful, high-end consoles. We can do our own thing and people will buy in because our games are good. And we don't even need to follow the traditional console cycle. Why are we making it so that our console launches at the same time as PlayStation and Xbox, where if we do it 4 or 5 years later, people that may have bought a PlayStation or an Xbox decide to just buy the Switch in addition to their console because it's been 4 or 5 years since they had the previous console? Look, it's smart, it's business. They know what they're doing, clearly. And their games are generally good, and that's why they get away with it. But now they're looking to control their news, they're looking to control their gameplay footage, their announcements. I mean, they tried to do a Nintendo Switch Online app on their phone so people could communicate with one another while playing. This is how they think. They want to squeeze every bit of everything they can squeeze out of people that enjoy Nintendo. And they will continue to do it to try to get away with whatever they can. And I think the fact that they're trying to make their own news exclusive? Come on. I don't know what bothers me more. The fact that they think that they could get away with this, or the fact that they might actually get away with it. Like, the logical approach here would just to be like, this is dumb. I don't care too much about having the app. I don't have to see this footage. I'm not going to download it. I'm just going to wait for the game to come out anyway and play it then. But no, instead now people are going to flock to the app and be like, well, I got to make sure that I see all of the little bits of information that they drip feed to us because their news now is apparently worthy of drip feed. Okay, look, I have 2 big takeaways from this information. And these are just massive guesses, massive assumptions. This is not me trying to fearmonger. This is not even me saying that Nintendo is doing X, Y, and Z. This is just based off of their patterns, what I'm guessing is going to happen. The first one I've already mentioned. I think their goal is to make the Direct exclusive to their app. Whether or not they eventually lock the app behind a paywall, that's me kind of grasping at straws because I don't think they can get big enough to do that. If they could, they would, but I don't think they'll get there. But I think they want the Direct to be specifically on their app, or at least like the initial reveal. So like you'd watch it on the app and then maybe the next day they would upload it on YouTube for people to see. And the second thing is a bit more of a reach, but I could very likely be making a video about this within the next few weeks if it happens. I think it is very likely that they start issuing takedowns for people that are sharing footage that is exclusive to the app. Whether that ends up being Direct information, whether that ends up being trailers, whatever the case may be. We could very likely be in a situation where Nintendo is telling people to remove their content online and their content is like a trailer of a game or something, or just random gameplay footage leading up to a title. Not necessarily a trailer. I think that's pushing it a little bit. And I don't know, like I said, this is very silly. Even my assumptions are silly, but Nintendo is being silly, so I'm being silly. It's just, it's Nintendo. What are you gonna say? That's it. It's Nintendo. That's the only thing that you can use to describe it. This is Nintendo being Nintendo. You are not allowed to screen record on their app because they're Nintendo. That's what Nintendo does. Okay, I'm done. It's a holiday. I'm gonna go out and have some fun. I'll talk to you guys later. Have a good one. Thanks for listening.